The Fairy Tale of the Child Savior. Once upon a time, the world of fairy tales was on the verge of ending, forsaken by children who grew up too fast and forgot the value of old stories. Within the void left by failing stories, darkness and oblivion blossomed. All the inhabitants of fairy tales wept with fear at the long-dreaded end.
All it would take is one last reader, one single young heart willing to believe in us still,
sighed the weary fairy tale king. But there was a child who still believed in fairy tales. Alone and abandoned by everyone, the child found shelter in those old stories. Within was protection from the world outside, too real and too cruel. Lost among myths and tales, he forgot the pain of a family unable to give him the childhood he deserved.
I love all fairy tales full of heroes and villains to defeat,
said the child.
Why doesn't anyone write new fairy tales? If only I knew how, I would do it,
the little dreamer kept repeating. The fairy tale king noticed the little dreamer, for if even a single reader was ready to believe in fairy tales, the whole world would continue to do so. Thus, the child became the savior. From his dreams, fairy tales drew new life. As a reward, the fairy tale king granted the child savior a wish.
Thanks to you, we are remembered. I trust you will find in your heart the proper reward to ask for.
For a long time, the child searched his heart for the most beautiful wish he could think of. However, hidden in his heart's innermost corner, he found his own shadow. The one who plots in the shadows emerged from the future, driven by rejection, whispering in the child savior's mind a malicious intent. The child savior truly believed that it was a good idea. Innocent, he said,
I would give new life to the rogues, a chance at redemption for every character who has been relegated to the role of villain for centuries.
But every light needs its shadow. So it was that the villains became good, the heroes became evil, and all fairy tales shattered.
Hello fellow gamers, and welcome once again to Gaming Shall Help. I'm Brad Davies.
I'm Drew Kochi.
I'm Sarah Babe.
And as you can tell from that intro, we are diving deep into the world of fairy tales with Broken Tales.
So good.
Yeah. This is a game by The World Anvil Publishing, which is an Italian company. The game and design and text are by Alberto Tronci. There's a bunch of beautiful graphic pictures and illustrations done by Danielle Commerci, which is fantastic, which is what kind of really draws you into this game. This game is dark fairy tales and kind of that shattered, twisted, dark world of Grimm's fairy tales.
Yeah, it is
broken.
dark.
And yeah.
It is this is not a happy ending fairy tale.
Yeah.
These are dark stories and there is not a lot of light.
I would say this game looks at Grimm's fairy tales and says, yo, hold my beer.
It takes that twisted, fractured fairy tale and runs with it. This game was originally kickstarted in May 2021 to the tune of 123,000 euros, 1,900 backers, including me, because I back everything.
We do.
Yeah, we do. We really do. At that time, they also did an expansion called The Broken Ones, and we'll talk about that more, but basically that one adds on to the basic game with a solo mode and some additional scenarios and such like that. And then after that, they just did another Kickstarter back in 2023 for The Lost Stories, which are additional things you can add on. Even more scenarios, even more treasures for the world, and it adds like a sandbox element that you can work in. You really only need the base game to really get the gist of it and play along. It is absolutely fantastic. Art sleeves up front. It's amazing. The art will draw you in, I think is the big thing with this game. It uses a D6 pool system, which is actually very interesting, because the game system lets you roll as many d6s as you want.
But if you roll a 1, your entire roll fails.
Yep. One single one will tank your roll.
I honestly am a little hesitant to play this game.
It doesn't seem as brutal and punishing, though, as a lot of other games could possibly be with that structure, because you automatically kind of already get one success, and basic successes in this game are 3 successes.
Right.
Like 3.
But if you roll a 1, your entire roll
So you're
fails.
needing to roll multiple dice every time.
Possibly, or you can spend your soma to bump that up. Or if you have a descriptor that gives you a success, you might only have to roll one single die.
Right. But the chances of me rolling a 1
Are 1 in 6.
What's the chances of you rolling a 1 on a d20? Probably higher
one
than
in
what
20.
usually. Well, but higher than usually what happens, right? Like,
right, but like I roll 1s a lot, which
You roll a lot of dice.
but I roll 1s a lot. This is scary.
the whole concept is that it's pushing that narrative to drive those characters into interesting and harrowing position. Cards on the table. This is a heavily narrative system.
Yes, this is. I would say this is not for beginners.
If you're here for crunch, this is not the game for you. This is much more about telling a story around the table. In fact, literally almost every game starts with once upon a time. It leans very heavily into that fairy tale trope that you are creating this dark mirror world of fairy tales at the table. A lot of the game mechanics push that narrative forward, and in fact, the game actually has a lot of suggestions and help on how to run that narrative. In fact, it actually goes so far as to say, all right, let's dive deeper and give you GM advice on how to run those scenarios and also how to run the different systems and even what they mean. This game does a very, very good job of kind of teaching you how to be a GM. So I would say if you are looking for some sort of narrative game, or you want to even like really like, oh, this game looks awesome, but I don't know about narrative, I'd say try it out to like learn how to narratively tell stories.
Yeah, and I think, while it is a narrative system, I think it's a very streamlined, easy to understand narrative system, right? Especially because you have the mechanic of you can roll as many dice as you want, right? You're not trying to figure out, what do I have to roll? How many dice am I rolling? What dice am I rolling? You could pick. You could say, I'm going to roll 20 dice, right? To maximize my chance of success, but you're also maximizing your chance of failure in that regard.
I'm not going to lie, it actually took me a while. Like it took me a couple times reading through. I read through like the rules section of the game like 2 or 3 times because it just didn't, my brain was not able to wrap around what it was saying. Sure. I'm not saying that's bad.
Yeah.
But it is so,
it's very unique compared to a lot of other systems.
Because I was like, but wait, how do I what?
Yeah. Because you don't have skills in this game. You don't have levels or anything like that. You just have descriptors.
Yes.
And if your descriptor matches something that is in that narrative, then you already get a success right off the bat.
Right. And I think my brain was going very much off of I'm rolling D6s, Powered by the Apocalypse. So I think my brain was very like, but wait, what do I... As narrative as I like to be with my role playing, I still was a little like, wait, what? How did what? Yeah. But what's my skill?
Yeah, this is not a Powered by Apocalyptic system. This is its own thing. The system is
Monad Echo, MONAD Echo.
Yeah, the Monad Echo system.
Monad system. Yeah.
Also, if we pronounce anything wrong, please let us know. We're not above being corrected.
Also, terribly sorry if we mispronounce anything.
Yeah.
It's its own system, and I believe they released the SRD for this, which is the system resource document, so you can make your own systems based off of this. To go back to the point of, like, you could roll a million dice if you really want to. You could, however... It's kind of a point of diminishing returns. On the system resolution, there is either failure if you do not exceed the opposition level, which is the base level of successes you need. So an easy one is 3, medium one is 5, and a hard one is 7. So if you don't meet your 3 successes, you fail. If you equal 3 successes, you get an outcome with a cost, which is basically kind of similar to Powered by the Apocalypse, where you are going to get you what you want, but it also puts you into a narratively maybe interesting position. The next thing is if you exceed the opposition level by 1, you get a standard outcome. So you get the thing, like you do what you want to do. And then the top end of that whole chart is exceed opposition level by 2, outcome with an increment, which means that you get kind of a bonus going forward. If your easy level opposition is 3, you already have 1. You only need to get 2 successes. You maybe want to roll maybe 2 dice to meet it and get what you want, or maybe you roll maybe 4.
That's right. It depends on the degree of success that you're wanting to get, right? If you don't want the cost, because you just don't want to deal with a potential cost, you're going to want to roll more dice to try to get a success above the opposition level. Mm-hmm. But then you open yourself up to that one single die rolling a 1, which now makes it a failure instead of a great success.
Oh, I'm not going to lie. It stresses me out.
Rolling dice is a gamble, as they say.
Yeah, I know, and it stresses me out.
Yeah.
And the GM does not roll any dice in this one. It's all in the players. So there's 2 different types of checks that you do. A position check, which is basically like, what's your position in this? As far as in, like, what's your position in the story? Are you driving the story?
Right. That's when a character is actively trying to do something.
Correct.
Then you're doing a position check.
What position are you left in at the end of your check? And then after that is a defense check. So if something's happening to you, so active and reactive, that's really the only times you're rolling dice.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time is you're telling a story.
Yeah. And in the standard game, the characters are called hunters. So it's if we refer to the hunter, that's the character.
The setting is, I think it was like 1780s Europe, kind of a weird fantasy misremembered Europe. I shouldn't even say misremembered. It's a fableized Europe. You're not remembering history or recreating history in this.
Right.
It's very like I kind of almost think of like the old Hansel and Gretel movie or the old Van Helsing movie. I mean, I know they were kind of cheesy, but they also kind of nailed that dark, grim Europe.
Yeah, it's like a gothic type feel.
Yeah,
I would say the Brothers Grimm.
Grimm, very much.
That's a great movie.
It also kind of reminds me a little bit of like Once Upon a Time, but not in a fantasy and not in a modern setting.
I mean, because it's dealing with fairy tales. And
also not Disney-fied.
Yeah,
right. Well, no, absolutely not. It's the opposite of Disney-fied.
Like...
right. I mean, and it's the story that Sarah told at the start, right? That's the creation of the setting and world, right? So the fairy tales are flipped on their heads, which is a thing that I love about it is twisting tropes and turning them upside down.
And
I love that because I always feel bad for the villains, like Ursula. It was recently brought to my attention that Ursula, I mean, obviously, like Disney, but Ursula was King Triton's sister. Did not know that.
No, did not know that.
And I'm like, I want to know more. I want to know why.
You're now playing the hunters, so you are now playing the villains who are now sort of the good guys, going after who used to be the good guys who are now the bad guys.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I like that.
I would even say if Bloodborne, the video game, hits this dark gothic feeling just as much with the whole hunting terrible monsters and stuff like that.
Alice.
Oh, the American McGee's Alice?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of the vibe and the story and the feel going in for this. With that, what do we think about this? Like, who's this for? What table would this go to?
This is definitely not for kids.
This is definitely
not kid friendly. Fairy tale lovers, right? If you love fairy tales, fables, those types of stories, this is a game for you.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you're a vampire player and you want to play something other than vampires, you definitely want to play this game.
Yeah, good call. I would say that this game is definitely for advanced role players, people who want to lean heavily into narrative storytelling. This is not for the people who want to go roll dice, kill the monsters, win the game, all that other stuff.
Oh, yeah. This is for people who actually like to role play. I could see our friend Tawny would be very good at this game.
I could see that. This is telling a story you're sitting down. And I would also say that this requires a decent chunk of emotional investment as well too.
Yes. There's a lot of emotional investment. I think it takes a lot of maturity to deal with a lot of these issues, and I think it also takes a lot of empathy and honestly observance from the person who's running the game to notice how I would not play this with strangers. Like, you need to know the people's tells.
I can see that. Yeah.
To know like what they're comfortable with and what they're not, because I could see this being a very easy situation for people to just be like, well, I'm invested in the story, but I'm very uncomfortable. Whereas somebody's like, okay, are you all right? Like, it's...
I could also see where you can dial this up and down too quite a bit.
Very much
It's
so.
very easy to dial.
Yeah. Very, very much so.
I think it does require you invest in the story. You're there to tell a very narrative story. Although, I will say, if you're looking for a beautiful book of art and even just ideas for fairy tales, this is definitely something you want on your shelf. If you're not going to run it or you don't think you're going to run it, I think it's worth it for the art, which is absolutely gorgeous. It is all very stark black, red, white drawings, and it is a very distinctive art style. And as soon as you see it, you either are like, oh, I get this, yeah, or you're like, not for me.
Right.
And if you see this and go, oh, that's for me, I think you should definitely get this and put it on your shelf. Even grabbing ideas of how you can take fairy tales and even not even just have to twist them, but like take them in a slightly different direction.
Yeah, I think this is a very good source book as well.
It also does have a solo roleplay mode too. So if you wanted to get the core book, which is the Broken Tales, and then if you get the second book for them, which is the Broken Ones, that adds a solo play element to it. So you can use it kind of like a journaling or self-storytelling game.
I could see this, you know what? I could see this being like a writer's workshop type thing for the solo
100%.
role play.
100%. I could see
because
that.
I feel like this is a game you don't need to go whole hog in on, but I could definitely see myself writing like 10 pages of a background story on my hunter character.
Yeah, exactly.
And like in the best way.
Yeah. And the hunter characters, they do have set characters you can use for the scenarios that are set out. And we'll go deeper into that in the deep dive here, but you can grab it and play those characters. You don't have to make your own. That is something where it is easy to grab and go as far as making a character. Running the game, I think you definitely need some investment into learning the game. So with that, thanks again for listening to us on this episode. If you want to hear more about the Broken Tales and you want to dive deeper with us, feel free to come to our Patreon, check us out, and you can listen to even more interesting information about this game.
Yeah,
But
bring your scuba gear on this one.
yeah, it goes deep. With that, I'm Brad Davies.
I'm Drew Kochi.
And I'm Sarah Babe. Once upon a time.